If you've been following along with the meadow, I've got another little update for you. We had a really wet May and a warm start to June, so there's been loads and loads of growth, and there's a little bit to report back on. Right, lashing down a bit. Let's go have a look. Yes, I wanted to draw a penis. So if you recognise a lot of these plants like foxgloves and poppies, they weren't really intended to be in the meadow. And although they're nice, they're not actually what I was hoping to grow. So what I didn't want to do with these videos is try and paint this completely rosy picture. I couldn't really find much online that was genuinely authentic about it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just couldn't find it. Most of the information that's online will be from people like Monty Don, where for 5 minutes on Gardener's World, he just scratches out a bit of his lawn and says, yellow rattle is highly important for establishing a meadow. But you don't actually see any process of anyone actually trying to establish one and seeing the problems that they might come across. And that's what this has ended up being really useful for, is the fact that I documented a lot of it, gave updates and tried to be honest about what happened. I think that's been useful for the number of people that have seen it. And it's certainly been useful for me to get the feedback from other people to say, yes, I struggled with that too. The cats seem to absolutely love it. And so the cats sometimes flatten it. We've had a pretty wet start to this year. So as soon as it rains, the grass wasn't really strong enough to hold itself up. So it ended up just being completely flat. And that causes a combination of wet cat huge proliferation of slugs in wet weather. As soon as I leave the greenhouse open on a warm day, they're in there and they just batter the seedlings. I had runner beans that were starting to just get onto the canes and they just got completely stripped. All the courgettes were totally stripped. But what I'm trying to do is be a slightly better ecologist rather than a gardener, and to understand that if I allow that ecosystem to develop, something will come along because of the abundance of slugs and start to manage that population for me. If not, I'm going to have to get the scissors out and start managing it myself, because I'm not sure I can emotionally deal with all of the things just getting completely munched. It's Sunday morning, just come for a little stroll out to Moseley Bog. Absolutely gorgeous June morning. I was chatting to some of the volunteers and they were telling me earlier in the year about the meadow. So I thought I'd come and show you. It's incredible just listening to the bird sounds and having a look at all the different insects that are flying around. It's not yet pictorial in the sense of strong colour, but that isn't what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a natural environment that finds its own equilibrium. They had told me that they did have yellow rattle in here. I haven't seen any yet, but they did give me the idea, which I now know about and have seen done in other cases, is keeping yellow rattle in the fridge. I have got some in my fridge, and it simultaneously needs to be kept cool for a period of months to cold shock it into germinating. Because it's semi-parasitic, it does require grasses. So what I was intending to do was to germinate it in some seed trays. Well, if you're planning to do that, don't, because it doesn't work. It seems fairly obvious to make the connection now, but yellow rattle, because it's a semi-parasite on grasses, actually requires grasses in order to survive. If you just try and propagate it on its own, it won't survive, so I had no success with that. So now what I'm going to do is hope that they'll germinate late. I've been keeping it in the fridge for a few months, which I'm told will help to cold shock it enough that you can then plant it out and it will germinate. It'll be a little bit later, but we'll see how we get on. One of the problems that I think I had, which I knew was a bit of a risk, was that I attempted to start the meadow off in, I think it was February. And although we did have a really cold spring, which I thought might have meant that I'd got away with it and that the rattle would have germinated, there are a few other things that I think might have happened that meant that it didn't. So there was a wood pigeon, quite a few blackbirds, a lot of birds that started grazing on that area as soon as I'd sown it. So they may have just eaten all of the seeds. The other thing is that the later you sow in the year, the less chance you've got of lots of different things germinating. I think the ideal time to do it would be mid to late autumn. So if you're going to do it, then try scarifying it that time of year and establishing it then. I think you're likely to have some more success if you do it that way. I'd like to actually make a start this year and see whether I can get some rattle to germinate. I'll definitely give it a better go in the mid to late autumn of the year. I hope this was helpful. Let me know how you get on with it, and please send me any messages or leave me any comments down below to let me know how you get on. I'd love to give any of the experience that I've got to be able to help, or at least we'll be able to find somebody who's done it before and they can help you too. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon.